Happy Friday. All right, we've got two report outs today on events and a 60-day update. How many got a chance to see Jim Lockhead's email? Anyone? So the last thing he sort of ended with was this idea of that we've always sort of kept our customers at the top of our list, right? And so the very first thing we're going to talk about today is our customer experience value stream. And whether you realize it or not, the idea that we're actually going to spend time thinking about what's the experience our customers have when they interact with us is really awesome. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean.
All right, thank you. If the first team would please come forward, that'd be great.
Good morning. So I would like to introduce our team. My name is Kelly Jackson. This is Eddie Hernandez, Aldo Pilateri, Alexis Avila, Raylani Smith, and John Rodriguez. We also had Jason Feinhout and Jake Morton in our event, but they were unable to join us this morning. And also our second slide here is just a list of people we'd like to give thanks to for help with our event this week.
Okay, we have a reason for action for this particular event. It turns out that there are lower levels of customer satisfaction because of the way the workplace is left when we do leave the site, and that pretty much includes, as you well know, landscaping as well as restoration of the street. So we had to address those. The other thing, to kind of mitigate that, we addressed the notifications to see if we could make them more succinct and much more brief so that customers could have a better understanding of why those conditions are like that. Next slide. So here's our current state process flow map. I know you guys can't see all that because there's just a ton of information up there as it is with many RIE events. But a couple of things I want to point out is we don't have a one call resolution, and you hope that's nirvana. You hope that is what you want to strive for. So we want to get as much information to our customer care people so that we can get a one call resolution and have better customer satisfaction. The other thing is Nextdoor. Everybody familiar with Nextdoor? I'm sure some of you guys are on that. As you know, that can be a rumor mill, and when somebody says, the asphalt out there is bothering me, I have real bad sinuses, so on and so forth, it can escalate with customers. So that kind of thing is two-way communication. So we're looking at possibly doing just a one-way communication with that, as we do with all the information that we put out, be it electronic or just on paper. The other one is our notifications. As you know, we like to be wordy here at Denver Water just because we are a bureaucracy. So we're looking at bulletizing those things, and seriously. So anyway, yeah. So we're looking to bulletize those things and really get the point across way better. And I think that will satisfy Mr. Garth Rigg, as you can see there.
Okay. Our current state is, as it sits right now, is we have an abundance of communication going out to customers, and we wanted to lessen that. Also, we have a lot of cleanup issues that go into the customer care service call center. So we obviously try to take care of that as well. Poor internal communication between customer care / dispatch and the project info. There wasn't a clear, concise path. And then customer expectations weren't being set as we needed them to be. And as you can see by the drawing up here, it's a chaotic mess, trees on fire, and there's basically everything's just, there's no info coming across, and there's a lot of disgruntled customers. Our target state is where we want to be, is less complaints to the foreman. We'd like to see one call resolutions going directly to customer care and having them be able to have the opportunity to fix any problems that the customers have. And then we'd like to preset customer expectations so that they understand at the beginning of projects that what to expect and relatively basic timeframes of when to expect landscaping and other things to be done. And as you can see in that drawing, there is, ideally we'd like to see everything gets taken care of in its entirety as they move down the block, and then so we don't have as much customer complaints. Yeah.
In order to help us with this process, we categorized the main issues on a fishbone chart. And then we went ahead and took those main issues and made them into problem statements of why these are happening, and came up with ways to conduct experiments on how we can possibly resolve the issues.
So our new process flow is that we have more more upfront information about projects for customer care and dispatch. So we've included information to customer care and dispatch, which they weren't normally involved, and now we've included them so they have everything that we have now. We've also closed the discussion, which is an experiment. We'll see how that works, to the Nextdoor post. So customers can't reply to Eddie. Well, they can reply to him directly, but they can't reply to the actual post for Nextdoor. And we also have need-to-know information on notifications and a source now of communication for sod restorations, as well as paving restorations and landscape restorations as well. Our new notifications are now a 1 to 2 week door hanger tag, which before it was a 2-day, so we've extended it a little bit more. We've noticed there was more of a response to our 2-day door tag, so if we stretched it out a little bit, it was enough time for the customer to get used to it and know, and still be able to have questions. And then we've also directed all of our notifications to customer care's email address and also to the phone number, so we can filter all those calls and have the customer care take care of it. We have also updated the thank you card from to be a little bit more concise as to we're done with a pipe job right now, and we're going to start working on restoration. So thank you for letting us be in your area, screwing up your pavement and everything. And so now we're going to work on your restoration, and that's coming soon, and having a little bit more stabilized dates as to when that will happen.
Now, as everybody mentioned before, we wanted to generate a reference form for the call center, for dispatch, to help answer questions or facilitate getting those questions back to the customer faster. We put together a customer response sheet of the major key points throughout different projects, the different questions that have been conveyed over to us, and made a quick, easy to glance at one page. Here's the key things. If you can't answer it, route it to the planner section, and then they could get more specific information. In addition to that, there will be an email notification sent out at the beginning of each of the major projects that'll have a map and then just a quick summary and links to find additional information regarding that project, so that customer care can reference that. In addition to that, there will be a daily paving email that'll be sent out that they'll be copied on, so they can see each day, here's where the contractor's at, and here's what they're doing, whether it's concrete or it's asphalt restoration. And then every 2 weeks, there will be a spreadsheet sent out for sod updates as to where, what's been done, what hasn't been done, and where they're at, the contractor's at, according to the map page for that area. And then as far as the customer is going to see, we went and we outlined, Jake Morton outlined the entire process from the beginning to the end of the project, from what he deals with. And we're going to load that up onto the Denver.org/pipe website, where you'll see the before, the during, when the crews find lead service lines, and then what to expect afterwards.
So as Kelly mentioned before, Jason Feinhout was unable to join us today, but he did leave us a very, very, very quiet video, but a very, very informative one. So without further ado, Jason.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction to a wonderful team. We had a great week this week. We got a lot of work done, and we had a great time in the process. All right, sorry I couldn't be there today, everyone. I hope this will suffice for a report out. First off, let's talk about metrics. So right now we're looking at 2 metrics. The first one is the percent of satisfied customers, very satisfied customers, with work conditions during a T&D project. And what we're looking at right now is 49% of customers are very satisfied. Our stretch goal is 75%. You'll see that we are looking out over 90, 180, and 270 days in order to achieve that stretch goal. Initially, you'll notice that we see a decline in the number of very satisfied customers. Now, that is not for anything going wrong, but that is because we're starting to centralize all of our customer complaints to customer care. And so that, of course, is where the tracking happens. So you'll have the same number of complaints, just more coming in to customer care than going to other avenues, which I think is a healthy thing. Now, don't worry about it, though. By the end of 270 days, we think we'll reach that stretch goal of 75%. The next metric that we're looking at are complaints about conditions during T&D jobs. So right now we're at about 78 complaints per quarter. Looking out, we think that in 90 days, we're not going to go up in the number of complaints, but we are going to stay the same. However, looking out at 270 days, we believe we'll be able to reach our stretch goal of 58 complaints per quarter. All right, now look at our completion plan. You'll see there's already 2 items that have been crossed off. Thanks to Eddie for those. The first one is that Eddie's already chatted with Matt Larson and gotten approval on our new notification system. The second one is that Eddie's already put out a closed discussion next door message, and we are trying that out to see what happens. The rest of the completion plan will be done over the next 30 days to 45 days, mostly by Eddie. Sorry about that, Eddie. But Kelly and myself will also be doing a couple of items, and we'll ensure that those are done. And we are very confident in success. Thank you very much again for your time and for coming today.
Thank you, Jason. Lessons learned and insights. As a group, we learned that communication between sections is hard to do. And also that too much communication to customers is, not necessarily good communication. And also, we also found out through Nextdoor that if you shut off replies, customer will still find you through other means of avenues. What we enjoyed as a group this week was we were happy to have the right people in the room to get the process streamlined. We feel very positive about the new process we instilled and set in place, or setting in place. And we're also happy that Eddie has his fair share amount of planning to do for all this and completion work. Linking back to the core values, we were passionate about getting communication across to the customer, and I think we all respected each other and our opinions. Any questions? What's up, Mike?
How are you going to handle Greenwood Village and those cities that don't allow door hangers?
So what we decided to do was the door hangers, we're going to copy that information, pretty much similar, basically word for word, and we're going to put them on postcards. And then in turn, instead of having T&D hang up the door hangers, we'll have Eddie will send out communication via postcard. Or if the community needs both, we'll send out both. Eddie's taking care of it. Eddie can knock on those doors.
Not for everybody to you, Mike.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Are the men and women in the streets T&D trained on public relations?
Somewhat, but that's why we're trying to move it more back to customer care because they have more information, But obviously, you're going to have T&D crews that come out. They're going to be on your block. You're going to have people come out, and they're going to be very, upfront and come out and ask you. And T&D crews are more than happy to answer those questions.
Actually, I've been talking to Josh Krieger, and they are going to be going through some public relations training.
There you go. See, we got you covered. Anything else?
On the some of the notifications you guys updated, so on the thank you one, that's the one where like the preset expectations, like, hey, here's what you can expect, the landscape and stuff. That's where you guys are putting it in that one.
So the thank you, what we really focused on was the landscaping because per the chart that we had, that was the highest number of complaints that customer care got, and also Eddie and Jason got from the projects. So what we did was we really we got into calling up T&D and getting their subcontractor on the phone and talking to them as well, and trying to get more of setting expectations for the customers as far as setting up fall and spring is usually when they do their landscaping work, and so we kind of narrowed down months. So that we could refer that back to the customers. So, hopefully that helps out in the process of getting, better communication across to them and when they can expect their landscaping to be done. It's hard to put a date when you have so many projects, and so many houses to do. So that's as close as we can get.
And then the part on the website and what Jake laid out, you're basically just going to put like on the website, like beforehand, so you can expect, during, and after, and that'll also give a website.
Correct. Yeah. We have links on each of those notifications that we updated to that, and then it's a very detailed, step-by-step process of what goes on out on projects, so that hopefully that relieves any customers who want to take that next step and go in and go online and really figure out what we're doing. Hopefully that leaves some of the questions and concerns that customer care gets, and also T&D out on site. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
So over the last couple of years, we've really seen an increase in the survey results that T&D's been having a lot of really good efforts in making good adjustments and good changes. So this event, we saw a lot of really good communication and collaboration and teamwork across divisions. So just want to thank the team for working with the other groups and making a strive to improve the customer experience. So thank you guys.
I'll go ahead and invite the generator, record keeping, and maintenance team up. So every morning, Mark Cripps came in and started the day with "Let the healing begin." And I followed up with Mark this morning. He said he's been healed. So something about the RIE must work, right? So I'll turn it over to Craig to.
Good morning, everyone. So this week we talked about generator record keeping and maintenance in our week-long rapid improvement event. Just a little bit of background. There's been a lot of sections struggling to keep record keeping run hours for each of their backup generators. And last summer we got with the CI team and did some current state mapping and some fishbone. And we formed a core team out of that, which met on a regular basis to kind of look at how we could do that record keeping for the run hours. We looked at SCADA, we looked at Maximo, and for various reasons that didn't work. As part of that core team, we were kind of breaking down silos, opening up communication, and we also found out that we weren't in compliance with EPA's requirements for maintaining the backup generators too. So we went back to the CI team and we said, hey, we could use some help from you guys. And we kind of broadened the scope a little bit to look at some maintenance on electrical equipment to increase safety and reliability, and to look at the criticality of the backup generators that we have that we have as well. So we have a VSA, but this is the first event which we've done as part of that VSA. And this event focused on compliance with environmental regulations. So looking at how we record the run hours to submit to state and county inspectors, and looking at how we conduct the maintenance which is required by EPA. We had quite a large team this week, and it was really good. A lot of people had a lot of input. Just go through the team members. Tom Heffler, Jerry Tischelbaut, Jason Hopkins, Tom Mountford, Christy Bloyer, Bill Peck, Fred Hughes, Nick Yarish, Michelle Sharma, Tad Kogan, John Carrigan, Joe Zadeklik, Tom Hebert, Mark Cripps, and Lance Cloyd. And some special thanks to some people that helped us out as well. Brandon Mollis, Dan Hunninghake, Paddy Wellborn, and Patrick McCoy.
The reason for action, why we did this, Denver Water currently does not maintain generators, engines in accordance with EPA and state environmental regulations. There's also a lack of standard business practice for testing, keeping maintenance records, and runtime records for all stationary backup generators.
So, as mentioned, these stationary emergency backup generators are regulated by the Clean Air Act, and after a lot of training and research, we kind of determined where these things fit. And under those EPA regulations, it's limited to 250 hours per year of use, 100 of which can be maintenance, and 50 can be non-emergency. Annually, the maintenance requires oil changes, an inspection of belts and hoses, and then annually we required to inspect the air cleaners and inspect spark plugs. And then all these records need to be maintained for an inspection by any kind of regulator. It could be CDPHE, a county, or EPA. So we need to be able to produce these maintenance records.
Okay, our current state, as mentioned, throughout our organization, we have 49 generators, but they're operated and shared by different departments. Treatment plants have some, source of supply have some, as well as system operations. And therein lies the problem. Each of these three departments had their own idea on how the record keeping was supposed to go, how the maintenance and the recording to the various government agencies that all have an interest in how we're running them. So this was that was the current problem, is that we needed to organize that into kind of a more centralized location for both maintenance and government record keeping.
So our target state was to come up with a common, standardized, easily accessible system that clearly defines the roles and responsibilities. We wanted to find something that anybody in Denver Water, for any needs, could access maintenance records, runtime hours, and I think we did that.
Okay, so we had to start off by defining ownership, which led to a very passionate CI discussion that you guys all know about. So out of that discussion, we have this picture, which I hope that you can see, but we started to look about Denver Water as an organization, and then talking about the facility operators that have those generators, so collection, treatment, distribution, and all of those share that they have a common level of service that they have to provide to our customers and to our stakeholders. And they do that through support of our assets. And to keep those assets up and running, we have different responsibilities and accountabilities that we each all have to take part in. So we decided that not to call it ownership, and so that's how we reached records and maintenance accountability, because we're all accountable. And as you can see as I go down this, every group that stands up here is on this. So we first asked who relies on these assets. That would be the facilitator or the facility operators. And same with whose responsibility is it if it doesn't operate. That would be the facilitator, facility operators. Who schedules and performs the maintenance. This is going to be divided between small and large generators. For small generators, fleet is going to handle that, and then large generators, which is anything 500 kilowatts or larger, we're going to contract out. And who records the runtime hours? So if it's a regular scheduled maintenance, that's either going to be fleet that's out there, or trades when they go out there to do their maintenance. If it's for an emergency, or if you're exercising the generator, the operators at that facility are going to be responsible for recording that. The records and the SOPs are going to be held on the environmental compliance SharePoint site. And environmental compliance is also going to be the one who monitors that and audits it.
This is an example of our runtime sheet that we came up that will be on the SharePoint site. It states the date, the classification of the operation of the generators, the run hours, and all this will be continually updated and rechecked. So if there's an occurrence that happens, we will constantly double check and update the information. So when anytime there's an audit or we need to send records to the state, we're fully in compliance at all times.
So in addition to the runtime records, we need to be accountable for maintenance records. The maintenance records are going to be stored in the Maximo system. There was, prior to this week, where there was talk about whether we'd keep those logs inside of M5 or if they'd be in Maximo. We've settled on Maximo for that system. And Cognos will be utilized to generate reports, which we will then link back to the environmental compliance SharePoint site. Large generator maintenance, as mentioned, we've got a demarcation point between the maintenance that fleet's going to perform and maintenance that we're contracting out. For large generators, we've got an RFP under review, tentatively 517. If the contract comes back under 700,000, we project that we'll have the contract in place by mid-June. If that bid should come back at 700K or above, then we're looking at mid-July for having a contract in place for large generator maintenance. Additional to that, we also implemented a visual management system that is going to be at the point of each use, right? So each generator will have its own placard, which will indicate its maximum run hours, like was established by Tom earlier in the presentation. It would also communicate any pertinent information, what engine type, model number, serial number, fuel type. I mean, we had nat gas generators and diesel generators, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi. One of the issues with tracking the data was multiple tracking softwares. Shocking. Fleet uses M5 from day one. We don't use Maximo, we use M5. We did get some training. We're going to be in Maximo opening and closing those work orders. The data will no longer be tracked in M5, and then we'll still track our maintenance time through an indirect code in M5. So, yeah, still a little bit of redundancy there, but we're trying to work through it.
So where are we going next with this? As you can see up here, there's a few tasks left to do. We've got a pretty good group assembled to make sure that we hit all these dates here. You can see we've got Maximo training coming up next week. A lot of things actually happening next week. Craig's going to be working, we'll be helping him out with replacing all that visual management, those infield placards that you see hopefully by the end of the month. So a few things left to do, but got a pretty good confidence level in getting those done when we say we're going to do it. So how'd we do? Well, you can see we've got that gap that you see on the first and the third lines there of between 100% compliance and where we are now, 75% after that RIE. That's all hinging on that contract being awarded. So that 25% basically represents those engines that above 500 kilowatts that we will have a contractor perform the maintenance on. So once we close that gap, we'll be at 100% on that. Line item 2, that NFPA 110, that's being shelved for a future event. And again, that's more addressing some safety issues so that was outside the scope of this particular event here. You can see that by constructing that SharePoint site, we're now 100% compliant on maintaining those records, having a place for those records to be available for any type of regulatory inquiries. And through this week-long event, we really did do a good job of defining those ownership steps. So 100% there as well. Glad to see those two greens.
Some insights I'd like to point out. What did we learn? That we all have a shared responsibility to make this program successful. Generators do not run very often. We can all come together to accomplish a common goal. How the RIE program works, and A3 can join all involved groups into a plan. How do we feel? Exhausted but accomplished. We found a workable plan. We made good progress. And I think we all felt like it was time for a beer after we were done. What DW value did you initiate this week? Vision, we all gave a little to adapt to change. Integrity, each group working as a team. Striving towards excellence. Passion, shared a passion to be successful. Excellence, get the job done right. And respect, many opinions were discussed and one solution was reached. Questions?
So when do you put loads on those generators when you start on?
From our side, yes. We have every one of our generators loaded, in system ops only. Okay, I'm not sure exactly on the treatment side or SOS if they load or not. So that's some of the questions we needed to come up with of that loading part of it. Ensure that they run.
I know some of the generators, the smaller generators, help start the larger generators. Are they going to be tested together? You said the larger ones are going to be tested by an outside vendor, and the smaller ones by fleet. Are you going to have to test them together since one helps activate the other?
Yeah, so that's probably my court. Number one, our small generators start and are scheduled to automatically run system operations on a schedule. Then the large ones will be scheduled with the contractor when he comes in. We have to have the small one to run the control systems to get the big ones to start. We've only got 6 big ones that we're dealing with on that part of it. So that's kind of how that's laid out.
Yeah, when they run for emergency purposes, we'll want to document that on the SharePoint log site as emergency use. So yeah, each time it's run for emergency, we want to make sure we capture that as well. The question was to automate the Yeah, and I think System Ops, Joel, has the ability to see it on SCADA when it runs.
We're still trying to figure out if we get the correct data in.
Yeah.
How it goes out and pulls that generator, brings it back in, are we really getting the right pumps? And we're dealing with that right now with ICS to make sure that SCADA is going to really work or not.
And for water treatment, I'm not sure if it shows up on your SCADA. I guess it does. It still needs to be transferred to our log sheet, though.
Sounds like you guys came up with a really logical roles and responsibilities for everybody. That I know that's hard to do. Was there some tool that you used that was like, oh, this is it?
I'm going to defer that one to Candy, maybe? I don't know.
So that's a great question, and I think the real crux to that, because we were struggling quite a bit. So we had, Austin kind of had us define our own definitions of ownership on stickies, and of course there were a million stickies. So, and then it was actually Tad Kogan that kind of defined this concept of level of service and how really we're accountable to our customers ultimately. So, Denver Water's customers. And so by using that concept of level of service and kind of using this hierarchy here, that really helped us just hit the nail on the head of defining that as responsibilities and accountability. So, yeah. So this is a good tool for other groups to use too, I imagine. Anybody else? Yeah, Patty. Could you clarify the question if we're going to use contractor? Yes. Yeah, let me give that to Michelle.
So the question is if we're going to track the contractor maintenance in Maximo, and the answer is yes, that we are. We're going to treat it just like all the other generators. So we'll be creating the work orders. Fleet will be entering in that information. The inspection sheet that we get back from the contractor, we're going to upload into Maximo, and any of their log notes is going to be the same. Any other questions? Yeah. No. We will be helping since, as we know, Fleet uses M5 to manage their work. So you and I, trades, will be helping create and manage the PMs. So we're going to create the PMs, but they are going to be, we did training yesterday, and Jerry's very sharp, and he's already been in there entering in information, doing log notes, and putting them. So we actually were able to backtrack and did all the ones that he's done year to date. So all those are up to date, and then pretty much we just are missing that 25% for the contractor. And as soon as we have that contract in place, we'll get the dates and we'll get that all done too. Yes, Zach?
Is there a way to consolidate the record keeping you can do in Maximo and SharePoint, or are they different for you?
So the run hour records will go in the spreadsheet in SharePoint. And then that Cognos report, that'll be the visual management for the maintenance records. That's what we'll put a link to in that SharePoint site too. Environmental Compliance got a project for later this year to build that Cognos report and that visual maintenance. So we'll do that later this year.
I heard Mark mention M5. What is that?
Mark and Jerry were very gracious in kind of conceding and compromising that maybe for the benefit of the whole group and the people who are going to enter this information, we all use one central system rather than using their system of preference. So, credit to those guys for compromising this week. That was a big step forward.
Surprise, Jack.
Okay, any more questions?
I guess I got one more thing to add to this, is that why we didn't go full speed on it right away was that Source and Supply, they have all kinds of small generators out there. They're going to have to do it the same way we do. So it won't be, we couldn't come up with one unified system to say, yeah, we'll use SCADA, due to the fact that they don't have SCADA.
Cool. Great effort this week, team. Thank you very much.
So as you can imagine, there were a lot of different sponsors for this group. This was a huge effort. I think you got a sense through some of the questions and some of the presentation of just how big an issue this is. And speaking for support services, we really appreciate environmental compliance partnering with us on this and really taking the lead. This has been a huge help to us as we kind of refresh our generator program. So thank you, team. Great effort, and look forward to future rapid improvement events on this one.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Plonsky, and I'm here with James Walker, and we're going to give you a 60-day update on our water audit rapid improvement event that we had in February, and this was the first event for customer experience value stream. So our reason for action, water audit field activities result as a leak adjustment high bill follow-up appointments. And so the problem we were having was this was always a follow-up, and we weren't really resolving the customer issue with their high bill or potential leak at the time when we would send a tech out, and we would check to see their meter, but then it would always be a follow-up action, and we're like, well, let's see if we can do it better. We had 2 technicians at the time that were dedicated, and James was one of them, who was dedicated to basically perform audits across the whole service area, so that basically lend itself to limited appointments and resources, of course, and excessive drive time. So we needed to improve our operational efficiencies while educating customers on water use. So the scope of the event is basically from the customer's call to the customer care through the completion of field work by field service. Where are we at in metrics? Metrics are a funny thing because at times when we first started this process, we didn't have a lot of information, or we didn't go about looking at things a certain way. So our first key metric is single trip resolution success. So we didn't have an initial state for this, but we were expecting to hit a target of about 80%. So what we were looking at is we were changing the process from a full audit. What a full water audit would be basically a full scale, going to the customer house, looking at all their inside and outside their property, walking through their toilets, dropping dye tabs, going through the irrigation system, running through each of the zones, coming up with an elaborate report. That was not a sustainable process. We're changing that process to a constant flow, expanded constant flow check. So this metric, to cover the 80% success rate, we were looking at how many repeat trips. So we basically just got some new data reports. So I want to thank, before I forget, Matt and Christine from the CIS team. So they're helping us get with some data. So this is to identify how many repeat efforts for specific field activities related to the water audit have we been out to back at the customer's property. So we've had between looking at first quarter of this year versus first quarter of the prior year, we've had a repeat of about 14%. So our success rate in terms of our single trip resolution is about 86%. We're looking at reducing our cycle time from 60 as our initial state for the full audit to a 30-minute target. And again, we have a seasonality effect here. So sprinkler systems just came on. Customers are just now putting their sprinklers on. So in the first part of what we're doing in terms of this process improvement is to actually look at the indoor effort first. That's why we started this event in February. Now we're into irrigation season. So we're seeing these numbers, the average cycle time, sort of being influenced by that training effort and also by the seasonality effect of we're going to have less time on our stops as we just work inside, and then it's going to get longer as sprinklers, as we have to go through the sprinkler systems and looking at least the clock and the controller and running a zone. So we're going to scale that back, but the cycle time is going to go up a little bit, but we expect it to normalize probably in about 3 months. Next metric is to develop customer messaging and scheduling SOP with customer care. So we're on track with that. We're not quite there yet. We've got some things to resolve with whether or not we're focused on what messaging or what SOPs we have for single family residential versus multifamily. So Pam, hold your questions. Training field service. So we've separated this out into how much can be done by the tech by themselves and how much can they do with a little bit of assistance. So we've separated that out, and I think we're on target to meet those. So in our completion plan, so we have some yellow here, which things aren't quite finished up, but we knew it was going to take some time to work through some of the process. Again, a little bit of a seasonality effect here because sprinkler systems are just coming online now as the weather warms up. So we are good with updating the die tabs, information cards. So we have all of that ready to go, and we've implemented that. One thing that we are doing is that's new and should be in progress here next week is we're going to be sending out reminder text messages for customers who have made appointments for our techs to go out. So that's a new one for us. So again, thanks to Matt and Christine for that effort. And basically, we're right on track with our inside service or our training plan for cover the inside, and the irrigation outdoor training plan is underway. So we're basically cycling through and pairing up field technicians, and James is going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do, I want to show this picture slide. So this is one thing that James encountered, and ignore this white little piece here. This is just glare. And then, I don't know if you can see, but this is a controller irrigation box, and there's a big leak that's coming off the solenoid right there that's inside the box. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about what you saw here in the field and go over how we are coming along on our training plan.
So this stop here was on Wednesday. So me and Ryan working together. So we had a check for constant flow, went inside, checked all the toilets. He had 2 zones. So we went outside, checked his clock. Since it was 2 zones, we ran the 2 zones. And we found out, what did he have, like a 3/10 or something like that? 3/10 gallons per minute constant flow. Went to the valve box, and the valve box was full of water. So we were able to get in there, turn the control off, turn off at the backflow, turn off here at the solenoid, and was able to control the leak. So that was, I think in the past, the check for constant flow would have been, they would have kind of tagged the door, or if the guy was there, they would have just broke it down and said, hey, listen, we think it's on your sprinkler system, and move on. Then I would have came back out to do the high bill, and then we would have had this situation here. So we're narrowing it, we're knocking it down right off the bat. Okay? Had another stop on Wednesday. So it was a check for constant flow. I was there 2 weeks prior and was able to get inside, found out that they had 2 toilets leaking. It was almost a gallon. Gave them some parts to fix their toilet. So then me and Ryan went back Wednesday to follow up to make sure the leak was fixed. We got there, they had 3 gallons a minute going. Okay? So I knock on the door, no one answers. Knock on the door, ring the doorbell, no one answers. Tell Ryan, hey, give him a call. We call them. They didn't answer at first. They called back. Come to find out, the guy left the hose running to fill up the pool, and that was running 3 gallons. And he had just left it on, went to work, and forgot about it. So we were able to control that, turn it off, leak was fixed, move on. In the past, they would have just tagged the door and moved on. I would have came back. So I think we're getting things taken care of one time, if not twice, so. You have anything, Ron?
No, just as far as that swimming pool goes, I mean, it was worth the effort to make that call and wait a few minutes just to see if he would return the call, which he happened to do. The fact that we did go back, he told us, yeah, there's a hose running. Could you shut it off for me? Yeah, we actually went back there and shut it off, and the pool was full. Yeah. So if we wouldn't have done that, there's a good chance I would have just kept going until he remembered, I'm assuming. So I think it's worth the extra effort trying to make contact with these people. And
I think the other thing too is we're putting detailed notes in the comment box. So now the call center has detailed notes on what we see out there, what we're seeing out there. So we're giving them good feedback so they understand what's going on.
I just want to say it's really helpful, which is why I get the program. So, Ryan, thank you. I know I'm your best like James do as well. It does help. Narrows and all those spaghetti, handoffs all the time. It's really helpful.
So let me introduce Ryan Proctor. I apologize, Ryan. They are paired up today and doing their training effort. So James just came in from the field. They came in from the field this morning. So sorry for not having your introduction. But thank you for explaining. So again, our emphasis is on promoting the customer education piece, and there is a lot of collaboration with the call center, and we are trying to do a much better job with telling the call center what's going on out there. At the same time, the call center is doing the very best job that they can in making sure that when they get the information from the customer, that they put all that pertinent details in there and try to set up as many appointments as we can, because we really need to have those touch points with the customer to actually help them.
My last thing, I think we're making more effort to knock on the doors of trying to get in now too. Instead of just driving up, looking at the meter, tag the door and move on, we're trying to make contact to get inside.
With that, we'll take some questions. I think I can answer that. It's going to be a call fire sort of initiative. So, okay. Yes.
I'm curious, as you guys start getting notice from the field and actually start writing that stuff down, if there's a plan moving forward to take some of that data and maybe try to start assigning some, like, grouping issues that you find and starting to find, well, we have 80% of our issues are X, and maybe using that data somehow.
So I think the question is trying to categorize issues and group that data. And yes, I was just talking with Gene last night about a new Pareto chart to use for our control board. And that's why that control board's not quite green yet on the color completion. So, any other questions? All right.
So a question for you, that you saw 3 report outs. How do you feel about them? Pretty good? Why? Mike, why do you feel good about it? Good change. What else? Why do we feel good about it? Collaboration. What else? Better service for customers. So again, if you've not been on a rapid improvement event and worked with a team, I encourage you to find a way to do that either in your area or in another area. You get to meet some really great people at Denver Water, really talented people, and you really get to learn a lot about how this big agency works. And with that, have a great weekend.